Ahmaud is my brother, and I would like to tell you a little about him. Ahmaud had dark skin that glistened in the sunlight like gold. He had thick, curly hair, and he would often like to twist it. Ahmaud had a broad nose, and the color of his eyes was filled with melanin. He was tall with an athletic build. He enjoyed running and had an appreciation for being outdoors.
That is Ahmaud Arbery's sister, Jasmine. We played the whole clip on Friday, as well as the clip from his mom. And joining me to talk about the impact of the victim impact statement on the sentencing, let me welcome law professor. She actually teaches Africana legal studies at Georgetown, soon to be American University professor, Angi Porter. Welcome.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for having me to talk about this important moment in our history.
You have been with us the last couple of years in every important moment, and I'm wondering though, as I was watching first, because the mom, the father, the sister gave their statements earlier in the day, and I thought they were going to sentence right there, but then we waited all the way until like 3:10. They actually came in with a 3:15 with the actual sentencing, and I was frantically. I was like, "What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean?" So I'm going to ask you now live. What does it mean? First, tell us what each of them got, and then what does it mean?
Mm-hmm. So Travis McMichael and Greg McMichael were both sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus 20 years. William Brian was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. So what do those things mean? Well, it's very complex. I'm kind of thinking, where should I even start? Essentially, the McMichaels will presumptively, unless they appeal and their appeal invalidates their sentence in some way, they're going to be sitting in prison for the rest of their natural lives. And that plus 20 represents the other crimes. Remember, these two were charged with 9 different crimes. So each crime gets a sentence. The 20 represents the non-murder crimes that they were convicted of. And that 20 is a combo. It's those crimes are concurrent. Mm-hmm. So the 20 is like 3 different crimes put together.
Right. 10 plus 5 plus, But right. let me pause there for a second, because Travis, the actual puller of the shot that killed Ahmaud Arbery, his father was not convicted of, what was it, a heinous, what was it?
Malice.
Malice, right. His father was not convicted of that, but got the exact same time.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, at a point, these things just max out. Okay. So you get the max for these murders. So Greg, the father, was convicted of felony murder, and Travis was convicted of malice murder and felony murder and all the other charges. So the max penalty for those, as we discussed last time we talked, is, well, not last time we talked, I think we had the Potter trial in there somewhere, but is life, either with or without the possibility of parole. Death is also a sentence that is possible, but death has become rare in Georgia because of the practical aspects of it. They still could have sought death, but I think a lot of prosecutors have decided not to, because it requires a jury, like another jury decision at the sentencing phase. And also, I think the family was probably part of that. For a lot of people, life is death. Life in prison is more desirable for families of victims in some cases, because they, as Marcus Arbery said during his statement, they want those offenders to sit there for the rest of their lives and think about what they did, as opposed to be executed. So something to keep in mind. But basically, those 2 crimes maxed out. So you have life for the murders.
What is that? Is there like a time period on life? So one is 35, the other one is what, 60.
Right. There is no time period. It's their
So it's
life.
like until you die. And then after you die, we're going to add 20 years. Like that's what's confusing to me. So you got life without, and then plus 20. How does that work?
So the plus 20, it is confusing. The plus is there for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because in criminal sentencing, courts sentence for each crime. So they want, say this was like a melee murder and 2 people were killed, and say it's like a Kyle Rittenhouse situation. One person was injured. So what the court is going to do is look at each victim and say, okay, we're going to give them life for killing this person, and we're going to give them 20 years for assaulting this person. It's confusing in a situation like this where only one person is involved as a victim. But basically the court's saying, okay, we're giving Travis McMichael life for malice murder, and then we're going to give him 5 years for the smaller crime of false imprisonment. We're going to give him 10 years. Actually, technically, he didn't get false imprisonment. That was subsumed into his malice murder. But there were other crimes like assault with the vehicle. We're going to give him 10 years for that. So they dole out a sentence for each crime. Now, the way it works is you're not going to die in prison and then they're going to add 20 years, which is what it sounds like.
Wake you up. Right.
Right.
Get Jesus like Lazarus, resurrect, and now he take 20 more. Right.
But that the general principle is we gave different sentences for the different crimes. Now, if they appeal, say an appellate court looks at the murder charge and says, actually, 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, or whatever constitutional grounds we have, we're going to lessen that. We're going to lessen it to life with the possibility of parole, which, as you hinted at, Karen, is shorter. That's usually 30 years before you're up for parole in Georgia. But people wait, I don't want that. I want them to be in prison their whole life. So this is a fail-safe too, because if that life sentence somehow gets shortened because of legal arguments on appeal, there's still 20 years that are separate from that. So if they win on appeal as to murder, but they don't win as to assault with the cars, there's still 20 years to be served. And it protects against the changes that could happen if an appellate proceeding comes into play.
All right, let's get to Rodney Brian, who got life with the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
The possibility means that, you can go before the parole board and plead your case. They can reject it, right? Mm-hmm. I saw Shawshank Redemption. Yes. They can reject it over and over again to get 99. And then you can go out and meet Andy Dufresne on the beach somewhere when it's too late for you to enjoy it. Yes. One of my favorites. This is my top 10. So he is, what is he, 40? So how old is he? Is he Rodney Brian?
I don't know. I'm thinking he must be 50.
He ages like bananas. The evil ages.
Yes.
How old he is. All right, let me see. Rodney Brian is, let me see. I can't find it. He is 50.
Okay.
He was 50 at the time that he killed or that he participated. So he's 52 now. Okay. So you're saying life in Georgia, it is technically 30 years?
Yeah. So he'll be up for parole in 30 years. Every state has its own rules. I checked Georgia, it's 30 years. And I think if you're denied parole, they come back every 8 years or something like that. So if you're in a Morgan Freeman situation, you up every 8 years. But he has to wait 30.
So he's got to wait 30, period. So he's 51, 52. So when he's 81, 82 is the first time he can go up for parole.
Yes.
Now, I think that's fair.
I think, they're going to be sitting in there for a long time. Caveat, of course, is appeal, but we'll watch it. Appeals are sort of extraordinary in situations like this, but I have no doubt in my mind that they will appeal because most people who are sentenced to life do that. They have nothing to lose.
What do you have to lose, right?
Yeah.
Now there's a federal charge against all three of them as well for what's technical crime? It's racial indifferent.
Yeah.
What's the name of this trial? I mean,
these are federal
case.
hate crimes charges. And to me, this is going to be one of the most interesting cases to watch, because finally, after all the frustrations and all the other cases we've discussed, where race could not be expressly referenced, we have a case where race is at the center of the charges. So the federal prosecutors have basically said, the three of y'all did this because Ahmaud Arbery was Black. You deprived him of his constitutional rights to access public grounds, streets and sidewalks. And you did it because he was Black. So we're going to see evidence come in this case that is really striking the heart of the matter. Some of the evidence that I've heard about, which, you know, I'm getting this through secondary sources and things, but the use of racial slurs, for example, that's directly relevant to these crimes. So I think this is going to be, for a lot of people, the first time they really see such a high profile case grapple with racism in the courtroom, instead of dancing around it, instead of shying away from it or slipping it in, as they to be fair, did in this case. Linda Danakoski, the prosecutor, went as far as she could go to reference racism on the evidence that they had. But this federal case is going to have a whole different tenor and tone.
And what's at stake here? And when does this trial begin?
That trial, jury selection, begins on February 7th. It's scheduled for
Black History Month.
7th. Yep.
Okay.
And, you know, we say it's scheduled for just because having worked in federal court, I worked as a judicial law clerk for a year in federal court, working for a judge. You know, the calendar can change like that. So presumptively February 7th. That's when jury selection starts. So even from jury selection, we'll see a different tone and tenor of this case. I'm not totally sure.
I'm sorry, Angie Porter is here. Sorry, Angie Porter, ANGI Marissa is where you can follow her, MARYSSA on the Twitters, S as in Sam. The federal trial will be held in DC?
No, that'll be in Georgia, federal court.
Okay.
Yeah, federal court. So, you know, federal courts, I didn't learn this till law school. I didn't really understand what the federal court system looked like, but every state has federal courts, usually dispersed throughout the state, and they're divided into districts. From what I know, this one is going to be in Georgia, in the district, I believe that includes Augusta, and they're going to draw a jury pool from a broader geographic area than the state case. So we're going to see, you know, a different jury makeup.
And this particular federal trial, that's jury selection begins February 7th. What kind of time are they facing, or is it, and how would that time differ? So life without the possibility plus 20 years for Rodney Brian, life with the possibility. All three of them are on trial for hate crimes February 7th. If convicted of that, how does that suss out with what they've already been convicted and sentenced to?
Yeah, so basically the federal overlay, they're different crimes. Federal hate crimes are different from state murder crimes. However, when someone dies in the commission of a crime, that ratchets up your sentence, sort of considered like an additional factor. It's considered an aggravating factor. So I did check those charges. Although I don't have the names of the charges off the top of my head, I do remember that because someone died in the commission of this crime, they are facing up to the very maximum, which again is life or death. But I would note federal death sentence, it's not, I wouldn't say it's rare, but people in the federal system have not been put to death in recent years. They've been dealing with, you know, this whole lethal injection fiascos, but there are a lot of people sitting on death row, and they sit on death row for years. So
now, which supersedes, federal or the case that we just witnessed?
Normally federal.
Precedence. Okay.
Yeah, normally federal. I think that if they are convicted in federal court, and I'll have to look into this, but there will be some sort of discussion about where they serve their time. And I think usually the federal will yank them up into federal prison. Federal cases don't have parole anymore. They don't have parole. So you might have heard that the defendants tried to make an offer for a plea deal right before sentencing. And they were basically like, we will take 30 years and we will accept that we did this out of hate, like that this was a hate.
Right. We don't even want to go to. They try.
It's wild because this is the way the law works. Like you could have an offer like that and that can't be used as evidence in the trial because that would just chill the whole practice of plea bargaining. But so they're not going to be able to say like, aha, you said you would accept responsibility. They're still going to have to prove that they did this as a hate crime. But still, it is sort of darkly comedic that they were like, yeah, we'll say we did that.
We will admit we did this. We don't want to go to trial because,
yeah. And they said 30 years because they know in federal prison, in federal sentencing, 30 years, that's just like a hard stop. But as you said, William Bryan is 52. So, I mean, they're still looking at a long time.